So hello everybody. As Mike said, I'm software developer at CallStack. I'm not really into video, but I've been recording all of you this couple of days, so we'll have some nice shooting from the conference. And yeah, basically the past few years I've been coding with React Native at CallStack all the time, so I'll try to share with you my vision and from I guess from the outside of the core, so as a person that is building apps just like most of you probably. So that's me.
Hi. Okay, cool. Hi, I'm Paris Athena, and I'm on the hiring team and platform team for G2Y. So most of my days I'm interviewing React and React Native engineers, so I'll be speaking from sort of that background. And I'm also a developer. I do develop like React Native apps as personal projects. So, yeah.
I'm Eli. I'm on the React Native core team at Facebook. I came from a web background, and recently I'm working on a lot of the Fabric architecture type projects on the Facebook team.
My name is Dulmandak. I'm from Mongolia. I work for my own company called. We develop music streaming application using React Native, and that's why I got involved into React Native.
I'm Emily. I also work at Facebook on the React Native core team. I've been doing React Native development at Facebook, mostly on Greenfield or standalone apps, including the Ads Manager app and the Oculus companion app.
Nice, thank you. And I'm Mike. I'll be hosting this panel. I'm the co-organizer, co-founder at CallStack and CTO there. I'll not be answering the questions today, but don't worry. We got a lot of great people here, so it's going to be awesome. So let's start. The first question is, how do we help first-time contributors to get started?
So for me, I feel that for first-time contributors, I think even knowing what is the process when you want to contribute to something. And so for me, I think you'll either discover a problem as you're building, or you're really passionate about something like React Native and you want to see a new feature get implemented or something like that. And I think you can go and look and see, is there already something open where people are already working on this new feature? How can I help? If not, let me build it myself. And I think for maintainers and other people contributing, just sort of being like, I guess, warm and welcoming, understanding that you're new to this environment and explaining how it works, and being willing to sort of give that mentorship a little bit. I think that's what I would personally want as someone who would be considered, I guess, like junior, coming into a new environment, just feeling like I can ask these questions and things like that.
For us on the Facebook team, we have been doing these GitHub issues every once in a while where we have a bunch of projects that we need to do, like flow type all of our native modules. And we've posted GitHub issues with a list of all these files and how to do these migrations, and send out links on Twitter saying like, please contribute. This is a great way to get started, a good first time project. And the thing that's been really amazing to us is there's like 40 or 50 files that need to get changed, and within 24 hours, all of them have pull requests. And so there's a lot of people that want to get involved and want to contribute. Can I actually see a raise of hands? Who has participated in one of those? I've talked to a couple people here. Yeah, so that's like 10 or so people. That's really cool. I think it's our responsibility as well to try to find more of those kind of opportunities, help people get involved in a warm and welcoming environment. That's what we can do.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. In fact, what we have learned ourselves from the React Native community is that by giving those tips and mentoring people, we've seen a lot of new contributors, and a lot of them are here with us today. Some of them even gave talks, so that's pretty impressive. I think that's a great evidence that this approach definitely works. All right, so moving on. How do we engage with the communities that already exist, already using React Native? How do we fold them into this community? Dulmandak, I think you might have a lot of experience here. You mentioned a lot of great work you've done for your community.
So back in Mongolia, we kind of have we are not native speakers for sure, and we have kind of language barriers learning new things. And to help with that, I created a Facebook group where people who are interested in React Native can join and communicate with others and ask questions and so on. And I saw that pattern that so many people struggle learning React Native. So I decided to kind of translate React Native documentation into Mongolian. And I tried to find volunteers for that, but I couldn't find one because, who are good in tech, they are busy and they are bad in translation, Yeah. So I realized that we can kind of organize some events and collect some tags and spend it to pay this collected money to a translator to get documentation translated, And we had 2 meetups in Ulaanbaatar, and we collected kind of, about 1,000 USD, and in total, and also some guys supported it and donated to some money. So we got all the basics translated into Mongolian, and I see that React Native community is kind of growing due to that. But also, we managed to translate React.js documentation into Mongolian and pass the bar requirement from the Facebook that we've got our domain name. You can go there and it's in Mongolian and read it and learn it, and it's kind of our community is so growing. Yeah, that helps.
Well, how big is the Mongolian React Native community?
Well, we have 3.2 million people there, and I created a React Native developers group in Facebook in January, and now we have 1,100 people there, Someone posts a question there, and usually they get somewhere around 10 comments, In the morning, I open the app and there's a question and it's already answered there, In the beginning, it was kind of people were joining the group and they see the admin as me and they personally write me, I have these questions, and I reply, I really don't know that stuff. There are so many members there who have experiences. You ask them and they ask there and get the questions better than, quicker than from me. So now they are learning to ask questions in the group and get communicating with each other and coming to the events, meetups. Yeah, it's growing.
That's really awesome. I'm kind of looking forward to you hosting a conference there, as you said, because for me this is the best way for traveling. I once went to Iran to a React meetup to discover local community there, and that was that's what I told customs officers later. What you were doing in Iran, just React, and they couldn't believe me, but apparently, there is a vibrant community there as well. All right. So, what are the biggest problems in React Native today, in your opinion? See? Okay, we're done, we're good, let's go. We're good. Yeah, I think, maybe there are not that many.
So the biggest trend that I've seen recently, and when I always try to ask people, what do you dislike the most about React Native? And the answer I've gotten most recently is the community packages and them not being high quality and version compatibility. This is an opportunity for us to really help all of you be able to upgrade your packages, your projects, and be able to use packages from the community in a more reliable way. Maintaining these packages is hard. One of the problems with it is that with React Native, you have to know JavaScript and Android and iOS to be able to maintain these packages, and very few people are really good at that. And so figuring out how we grow these maintainer communities to be able to manage these and support all the things that you want is one way that we can kind of try to address that. We need to look at other ways, maybe in the CLI, to better support checking version compatibility between modules and React Native versions. But I think that's an area where we really need to improve.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. I mean, as I said in my keynote, I think we are on a really good path to eliminate all those pain points, if any. And so I think if this question was asked last year, we'd probably have much more to say. Now it's a different story. All right. Why does Android still feel like a second-class citizen, and what can we do to change that? I have iOS, so I can't answer.
I have Android. It's great. I think, well, when we started React Native, it was released for iOS, right? Then it came out for Android, and it's true that there was a lot of complaining, including myself. So yeah, then a lot of people from community came out, like Tom and Dash or others, and start contributing on Android. So I think that probably there is a ton of Java code on the React Native repo, like recently got bigger on that. And I also realized, like, when we got this Hermes presentation on Chain React and here, so there are actually people, Facebook, working really hard to make it work well on Android, right? So we can, like, for me, the presentation of Hermes, it meant that Facebook really care of Android. They really want to work well. So I don't really think he's a second-class citizen anymore. It's just that there is this concept that, oh, in iOS will always work, which is not true. So, but yeah, I think if you would ask me this 2 years ago, I would be more critic. But today I'm like, sure. I think it's going to the right direction on Android.
All right.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of the developers at Facebook struggle with is just the Android ecosystem is a little bit tougher to work with in terms of like tooling, and the emulator isn't quite as good as the iOS simulator, and so there's a lot of, you kind of can end up maybe testing iOS more than you test on Android, and then that kind of has downstream effects as well. And I remember just when I was working on apps for iOS and Android, I would go to the docs and you see like a bunch of props that are iOS only, and you're like, oh cool, that's great, how do I do that on Android? And then maybe it's not necessarily like, maybe React Native is just like exposing whatever functionality the underlying component has, but it still feels like, oh, why does Android not have all this functionality? So I don't know how we solve that, but yeah.
For myself, I'm completely agree with Different. It's not the case, for my use case, both iOS and Android works like quite well, and I don't feel that Android is kind of second-class citizen. But when I'm talking with people and they got perception that it was created on iOS and then added the Android support, and also on the website there was kind of like it works on iOS and Android, and like lately we changed that, if I remember correctly. So it's not the case. Yeah, it works fantastic on Android.
So one thing to add to that, if you want to take something back to your team, if you work at a company, go back and tell your manager that people from Facebook say that you should expense an Android test device. We found that everyone on our team uses a device. We've struggled for so long with the emulators and paid emulators and all sorts of things, and using an Android device just took a lot of that pain away.
Yeah, I feel like now everybody at Costa gonna ask me this, because I've like just used the emulator for a while. Yeah, there is actually one place where iOS, like where we have Android first approach, and that's our testing pipeline. when we are releasing React Native on Android, we have fully automated tests. And on iOS, I have to manually open up the app and check, hot reloading or fast refresh, etc., etc. So it works good enough that I actually recently thought about buying a Windows instead of my Mac, because I've been like, I can do Android apps and don't freak out. So yeah, all right. So what kind of skills do you look for when it comes to hiring React Native developers?
So it's kind of funny. Actually, I'm interviewing someone in the audience. I just found out, so I'm not gonna.
Tell me who.
descriptive.
I want to talk to you. Just kidding.
So at G2I, what we do is we send engineers this code challenge, and they can choose to build in React or React Native, and then they have a technical interview. And so, we're making sure that you have clean, readable code in your code base, and where did you centralize your API knowledge and business logic? I'm like trying to think and not be descriptive at the same time. We ask questions like, how would you keep, oh my gosh, sorry. Would your app be scalable if it was, sorry, I'm trying to think of ways to word this.
Just give it away.
I can't. I'm literally not allowed. Basically, can you code? That's really what it is. Can you code? Can you talk about it? Do you sound like an engineer? I don't know where you are. Just take that away from what I just said.
Have you found any particular things make for really good React Native engineers?
No, I think it's if you're staying up to date. We know if you're staying up to date because we're asking you, where are you getting your information from? How do you keep up to date? What do you know about, React hooks and just anything that's new and updated? That's just kind of the things we ask. But at the end of the day, it's still like, can you code? If you're not up to date, are you a fast learner? Like, are you active on social media? Do you go on Reddit? What do you do to just keep up,
Faram, can you answer for me this question, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did a lot of hiring in Callstack for React Native developers, and it's really hard to find React Native developers, right? There is nobody here that has, 7-8 years of experience in React Native, right? So, yeah, we basically look for, how to phrase it also. So, I'm mostly interested in your JavaScript, if you have to do some Java, some Objective-C, do you hate that? No, I don't want to see Java never, or Objective-C. So I found that if you want to code in React Native, of course there is JavaScript and there is the React, all that stuff, but then if you are, you probably at the end will need to know how the platform works, Android and iOS, so that's cool. So we usually check that, and yeah, I found that at least when I joined Callstack, I didn't know any React Native. I knew React, I knew some Android, so I sit there and Mike told me, oh, do these screens in React Native. So you manage to do it if you're open to, you will see more languages than JavaScript in React Native, so if you don't have a problem with learning languages or enjoying them, even if that Objective-C is really not the most beautiful, but it works. That's what we do. So I think mainly we make a task and we have some stuff of JavaScript, yeah.
There's also your very secret question you always ask during pair programming.
Fibonacci?
Yeah, Fibonacci.
That's all. We will change it.
Now we have to, right? Okay. All right, so the next question is, what do you think is needed for React Native to be 1.0? Oh.
I think.
All right.
Well, what do you guys? Yeah, what do you think?
I can do it. Mistakes happen, you know.
For me, I think it's ready. And it's just a point of how managers see this. So they see 0 point something and they are like, is this stable? For me, it's stable enough, so I would say go for it. But I will let you answer that.
Well, it is just one more typo away for you, right?
Yeah, right.
I think there's some things that we've been. We acknowledge that like this is a thing that you guys and everybody wants, and it comes up all the time. And companies that contract, especially, there people say like this isn't 1.0, or should we really be building our app on this? And we want to make that problem go away. I think there's some things that if we went 1.0 right now, it wouldn't really be much different than it is now, in that like every release would still be like a bump to Semver Major, and like going from 1.0 to 12.0 in a year is probably not great. I think one of the ways we're trying to combat that and kind of get ready for what people would expect from 1.0 is the Lean Core project. For example, if anything changed in WebView that was a breaking change, we'd have to bump the Semver of React Native as a whole. And I don't think that's quite what people expect. And so by moving that out into a separate repo where they can manage that themselves and manage their own Semver, then React Native gets smaller and it can be more stable. And I think that's one example of something that we need to do to kind of get to the 1.0 that everybody wants.
Yeah, otherwise we end up at like 67, like Firefox or something, right? That's gonna be, yeah. All right. So, what would you like to see improved in the React Native docs? Rachel, you around? I can't see you. Just
Localization.
yeah, there you go.
I was talking to some people at this conference actually about, there was one example of, I think it was something about the application lifecycle, and it like linked directly to the Apple docs, and like didn't make any mention of the fact that applications are pretty different on Android. So I think that's one area where we can improve, is actually maybe making the docs kind of come to you a little bit more in terms of like explaining how things work. And I know that's something that Rachel has been talking a lot about.
Yeah, I guess the conclusion here is that there is a lot of changes coming.
Yeah, that's worth calling out a little bit more. Rachel Neighbors just joined our team to work on a lot of documentation and community kind of outreach kind of stuff. And there's so much to do in documentation. And Rachel's been talking to a ton of people in the community, figuring out what's missing, what do you come to the docs to look for, and what are you not getting? What information is out of date, where can we help you more? And I think we're gonna see a lot of improvements there. Even we were working on a hackathon earlier this week where there was a bunch of documentation improvements, making things easier to find. It's just the beginning, and I hope that at the end of this process, you'll feel the docs are a lot better. And docs will never be done, but I hope that you'll feel a lot better about them.
Righty. The next question is, how can I level up my skills as a React Native developer?
This I can answer and not get in trouble. So I personally, and this is me speaking just as myself, I think you should be staying up to date, but also always building. So for me, I can stay up to date just by following the React Native core team on Twitter, and just people who love React Native and they're contributing, they're always asking questions. I can ask them questions, I'm engaging with them, I always know what's going on, what's being updated, what's being added, what new features, like I'm learning all of that just by following people on Twitter, and then building. So, just playing around, doing your personal projects. I just think the best way to learn is to build. And you might crash and burn and then you come back, just make mistakes, So that's my answer.
Yeah, what I find interesting is kind of when I have some spare time, I look into the issues, and try to, help if I can, and then it's like, sometimes it opens my eyes, because sometimes people use React Native in a kind of different way, the way I was thinking about it, and they are doing so many crazy things using React Native and failing and reporting issues, it's kind of cool. It feels so good when you see some kind of mistakes and then try to point them to the right direction if you can. And you can, there are a lot of issues and there are so many like low-hanging fruits. You can go there and see like what other people do and try to help them, and it will help for sure.
One thing that I found helpful as someone who doesn't have a background in native Android or iOS development was like just trying to learn more about the underlying platforms and like spending some time, in like the Android docs or the iOS docs and like figuring out like, oh, why does it work this way? And it's because, or whatever it is. But spending some time just kind of like learning more about the platforms. That was really helpful.
Yeah, that's when you become a real full stack developer, right? Android, iOS, and JS. Yeah, it's no longer about Node.js anymore these days. Okay, so what quantity data do you measure in your React Native apps to improve quality and performance? I have some cool shortcuts to pronounce here, like TTI, code coverage. That's not a shortcut, but there's this TTRC, etc. So that's the question. I think the TTRC.
Yeah, I should probably explain that. One of the metrics that we care the most about right now at Facebook is TTI or TTRC, which is time to recent content, which is just measuring a little bit past TTI to reflect the fact that just because you can interact with the app doesn't necessarily mean that it's done, fetching recent content from the server. So we those are the metrics that we probably care the most about right now, but there's a bunch of other ways that we track like quality and stuff too.
So that's one of the things that we do for TTI and TTRC. Also, if you're interested in measuring your app, Ram gave a talk at Chain React this year that was amazing. If you haven't seen it, it somehow covers like everything we've thought about performance in how to measure your app, how to make it faster, different strategies, how to use profiling tools that I didn't know existed. Really high quality talk. I recommend checking that out. On the quality side, React Native has had this perception that features built with React Native look and feel terrible. And we've had that perception at Facebook as well. And one of the things that our team really went out to try to solve was that feeling, especially from designers and leadership, this like, you can't build high quality experiences in React Native. And we ran a bunch of studies and found some issues on Marketplace, and we went through and we really combed through these experiences, making sure that there were no flickers and people were using different animations right, using native driver, all these kinds of things. And as we fix these bugs, it's been kind of annoying to me because I can no longer tell if this feature is written in React Native or not, which is also the goal. So great for that. And we don't have that perception anymore. And teams that are building really amazing things are using React Native and looking really good with it.
Alrighty. Maybe a question related to platforms now. Could we expect to see React Native supporting additional platforms, for example watchOS or Wear OS, as a first-class citizens in the nearest future? All right.
As Orta says, you can't do React Native on watchOS because you can't run JavaScript on it. But maybe you can do something like server rendering like UI TV people are doing.
Sounds like a plan. So I was thinking that, Dorta, maybe that was your tricky question that you asked, you know? Yeah, of course.
There's all sorts of different platforms with React Native, and it doesn't have to come from Facebook. Most of the platforms that you've heard about this conference are not coming from Facebook. There's so many. I think it's kind of funny because everybody's like, the third platform is the one we're building, but like there's like 15 platforms at this point. UITV has like 12 of them. So like, you can build it. Just build your Wear OS platform with React Native. I think one of the things that we're trying to do on the core side is, as we're working with Microsoft and with UITV, more figuring out how they're using React Native, how can we make it easier for them to maintain their platforms, to build, for more people to build more platforms, and how can we make that kind of more of a first-class citizen? And we're starting to think about kind of like what would that look like for us to consume React Native in iOS and Android the same way as Windows does, and kind of build these pieces so that they're not special, making it so that everybody can build whatever platform their heart desires.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think the conclusion is that, you know, like as you said, we are not planning on adding anything to the core anymore, just trying to make it easier to integrate, and that's nice. All right, so since we are slowly reaching to an end of this panel, while I would love to talk with everybody for another hour, let me close this panel with a question to every one of you, because I'm really curious, and a lot of people are curious. What is the thing that makes you more excited about React Native? So I think we'll start from the right side, and yeah.
So as I said before, when I saw the talk from about Hermes, I saw the light about Android and React Native, and because of conference like this, you have the opportunity to talk with these people. I didn't know them before. They are barely on Twitter, and so they are great developers and people that are not on Twitter, fortunately. And I would say talk to them. It's like I barely understand what they tell me, but it sounds amazing. It sounds making Android faster, so I really appreciate that. And yeah, it just work on your app. You just change a line, right? Enable Hermes, and it works. So I'm really excited about that, and that makes me, you know, keep working on React Native, because even if you say, oh, but if you build the app natively on Android, I also did that, and it has a lot of problems too. So yeah.
For me, I think it's how much the community is growing. You know, as I said, I'm a hiring team member, and I only interview React and React Native engineers, and I have to go through our database every day, and I see that people are applying for the React Native positions. So that shows me it's gaining a lot of popularity, and so I'm just excited to see how much bigger things get.
I'm really excited about how much Microsoft is stepping into this space. With the talks that they gave today and yesterday, it's like quite core to their business, and they're doing a lot with it in Office and in Windows, and that says a lot for React Native. But also, like, Microsoft has a cross-platform like system for building UI, and they're building with React Native, and they're more involved in this community and supporting React Native Windows and React Native macOS, and like they've talked about all of that, but what they haven't talked about is they're partnering with us more closely on a lot of the things that they have expertise on, things like accessibility and input. Like, we support iOS and Android on the Facebook team, which is like all touch, but Windows has to support touch and pen and mouse and like keyboard, and there's a lot for us to learn from that, and having a company like Microsoft involved with all of their expertise, we're going to be able to do a lot of things a lot better, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm kind of more excited about the community, because I found it so diverse and welcoming, you know. I was so shy when I was started contributing to React Native, and they were so welcoming, like reviewing and like giving so many comments and like helping me improve my skills. Like, you know, there was a case that I added then and support for custom fonts on Android, you know, and I was, it was so impressive that, you know, Facebook guys pay so much attention into the performance, and that commit was accepted after a while, and a week later I found it reverted, you know. The reason was, yeah, it's adding that many milliseconds to the startup time, you know, which I don't care, because it's such a thing that you don't experience that milliseconds in regular apps, but at the Facebook scale it matters actually. So, and that was so challenging for me, you know, I wanted that feature that much, and I just, you know, changed the implementation and like pinging Kevin, yeah, could you please review it? And he's saying, you know, yeah, there is a thing you need to improve on, and I'm reading, and you know, working on the code and like changing 3 or 5 lines of in the end. And could you please review? And it was like back and forward, you know, and I learned a lot from it, and then it got accepted, yeah, actually. Yeah, community is so great, so welcoming. Yeah, please contribute more.
I was also going to say community, so I feel like I'll say fast refresh.
Yeah.
No, but in all seriousness, I've been kind of just doing React Native development at Facebook for a long time, and I feel like I was in a little bubble there and didn't really think about the fact that people use React Native outside of Facebook. I was like, oh, this is this thing that we built because we had this use case for it. But coming here and like seeing how many people are using React Native in their, you know, products in their businesses, and like how many people are contributing to the community and everything is really awesome. It's like seeing people walk around with like React Native jackets and stuff. I'm just like, wow, this is the same thing that we started working on like 5 years ago. It was just like some, you know, thing that might not have worked. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't have to answer, right? Because I'm at the end. Actually, I can tell you what I'm excited about, because because I'm excited about it, right? I can't hear you speaking this Polish, you know, jokes, but so I'm really excited about autolinking, and that's not because I had a pleasure to work on it, but like if you've been following what I'm doing, like I started my React Native journey with Alexei trying to solve this linking problem. Like one day I just woke up and I was like, let's solve this, and like it took us 3 years, and it was never solved entirely. Like it was actually degrading with every month as changes were happening, and so we recently started working on autolinking within the community, and I'm really excited that we are working within the CLI with a couple of my friends who are actually here, including Tim Mikey and Kacper, who is somewhere here. You know him as SMSek. He's the TypeScript guy on our team. So we are working a lot in that aspect, trying to rewrite it together with other contributors. And my goal is that you don't think about something like linking native modules, that maybe a few months from now people will not even know this term. So that's what I'm excited about this process of just getting rid of those build systems and just thinking of dependencies as regular dependencies. So that's I guess it. And now I need to continue because that's the annoying part. So that said, I'd like to thank all the panelists for all the great answers, and I would like to thank you for all the great questions. So please give a huge round of applause for everyone.